Hey, my name is Alec Wenzel, and today I'm talking to you about guitar setups. We're going to kind of divide this video into three sections. We're going to talk about what a total guitar setup looks like to me. We're going to talk about what parts of that setup you should kind of be able to do on your own. And we're going to talk about what parts of that setup you should probably ask your local luthier to do. And then also how to talk to your luthier about what it is that you're looking for on the guitar. But before we get into all of that, please like and subscribe. My channel is really new, and a quick like and subscription goes a long way for me, and it means a ton. A lot of you subscribed on my last video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much if you're a returning viewer. That support really does mean the world to me. If you're a first-time viewer, again, please, a quick like and subscription would go a long way, and that subscription button is in the bottom right-hand corner underneath the video player. So, first of all, what is a guitar setup? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's setting up your guitar so that it functions physically the way that it should and electronically the way that it should. You might be comfortable doing some of these things that I talk about in the video, or you might need all of it done by your local luthier. A luthier is a guitar craftsman and essentially a guitar mechanic, somebody who both builds guitars professionally and fixes them professionally. There's likely one at your local music store who can help you with these things or get you started on the right path for doing some of them yourself. Another great question is, when does my guitar need a setup? Well, your guitar might need a setup if you're running into physical issues while you're playing it. These issues might be intense fret buzz or feeling like a note isn't ringing out correctly when you're pressing in a fret. These could also be tuning issues, even though you swear you've tuned your guitar correctly. Other issues that might arise might be electronic. You might be feeling signal loss as you're playing the guitar, or you might feel like a knob isn't functioning correctly. These are all issues that you could address with a setup on your instrument. So what does a total setup look like to me on the guitar? Well, a total setup to me includes all the physical aspects of playing the instrument, and it also includes the electronic function. Right? So when I talk about the physical aspects of playing the guitar, what I mean is, are all of the frets nicely crowned so that you have a rounded surface to press down on? And is there any fret poke? Did we remove any sharp ends from the frets? It also means using the truss rod and the saddles in concert to create the desirable action that you want. For me, that's really low, but for other people, it's a lot higher. And making sure that you can get all of those things functioning for yourself is important to the way that you play the instrument. When we talk about the electronic function, we want to make sure that all of the knobs work the way that they should and aren't scratching or dirty sounding, as well as making sure all the connections are tight so that when I plug the guitar in, I know it's going to work the exact same way every time. So what are some things you should be able to do at home for setting up your guitar? Well, on the physical side of things, we should be able to adjust our own action. The other thing we should be able to do at home is adjust our own intonation. So the first thing I mentioned there is addressing our action. Action, again, is the distance of the string to the fretboard. Now, I personally prefer a really low action. That means I am trying to get the guitar string as close as I possibly can to the fretboard without having articulation issues. Articulation issues might be buzzing when you press in the fret, or feeling like the note is a fret or two higher than it really should be. This might mean your action is too low and you need to adjust up. Your action might change because of changes in the weather or changes in season. Your guitar, while it's not a living tree anymore, is still a piece of wood that can absorb water from the air. If we absorb too much water, the neck might warp and stretch a little bit, or if it goes to a drier climate, it might shrink a little bit. This is going to pull on the string in different ways and raise and lower the height of that string. Now we adjust our action through two different points on the instrument. We adjust it from down here with the string saddles on the bridge and through the truss rod, which is located in the top of your neck in most cases. There's often a truss rod cover over the top of it, but it is easy to remove a couple of screws and pull that truss rod cover off. Now we want to do a majority of our string height adjustment from down here on the string saddles. We almost never want to over adjust our truss rod, and that is sort of a place of last resort. To adjust our string saddles down here at the bridge, we're going to need a 0.05 millimeter hex wrench. A 0.05 millimeter hex wrench is often what is used on Fender style instruments. Now there are going to be two little hex screws on either side of each bridge saddle, and by turning your hex wrench clockwise, you will be screwing the screw further down, and this will push the saddle up. In order to lower the saddle, we will turn counterclockwise, pulling the screw out, and this will push down the string saddle. Now, as I said a second ago, we almost never want to start by adjusting our height at the truss rod. While this doesn't mean that we never want to adjust it, it just means that we want to be doing it sparingly and not over adjust over there. Your guitar neck will always have to have a little bit of a bow in it, and this is what the truss rod is responsible for. To adjust your truss rod, you will need a 4mm hex wrench. If you were to turn it clockwise, that would be tightening it and flattening the neck, and this will make it a little bit easier to get a lower action, but we can never have a perfectly flat neck. Your guitar neck will always have to have a little bit of a bow in it. This is so that when you press down into a fret, there is a valley for the string to travel out of. If your guitar neck is perfectly flat, pressing down in a fret will cause the string to touch other frets further down the neck and stop the string from vibrating. Now, sometimes when you want to adjust your truss rod, like I said, are if you have an extreme bow that you want to flatten a little bit, or if your bow has gone convex and is actually pushing up and away towards the strings. Now, there are people with significantly better cameras on their significantly better workbenches to show you how to do this. I'm here to explain it, but I will link some resources that I really like to show you how to do it. Now, everything I was just saying applies to a Fender style instrument. When we're adjusting our string height at the bridge on a Gibson style instrument, it is not done through individual string saddles. There are these little sort of hand screws on either side of the bridge, and it's going to adjust the height of the whole bridge. You can adjust it from the bass side, raising and lowering the bass side, and you can adjust it from the treble side, raising and lowering the treble side. This will give you a sort of slant from either direction. Or you can keep it even and just push it up and down totally and keep it nice and flat, but you are not going to be adjusting individual string saddles on a Gibson style instrument. Now, there are people with significantly better cameras on their significantly better workbenches who can show you how to do this in more detail. For me, sometimes an explanation like this is enough, but if you need more resources, I will be linking them up above in the video and then down below in the description. Now, the next aspect of an at-home setup that I think you should be able to do on your own is intonation. Your guitar's intonation is what is responsible for whether or not your guitar sounds in tune at all points on the fretboard. If you are playing open position chords and you feel like you're in tune, but feel like your guitar becomes progressively more out of tune as you travel up the neck towards the 12th fret, then this means that your guitar may not be intonated correctly. Luckily, there's an easy fix to this. If we play an open low E and we hear that it sounds in tune and we've got it all tuned up, and then we play a low E down here at the 12th fret and we notice it being sharper or flatter using either our headstock tuner or a pedal board tuner, then that means we need to adjust our string saddle down here at the bridge. We can push our string saddle forward and backward with a screw located on the back of the bridge. Now, if when you play your low E at the 12th fret and notice that it sounds flat as compared to the open low E, then this means we need to shorten our string length by tightening the screw at the base of the bridge and pushing that string saddle forward. This will increase the pitch and bring it up to in tune at the 12th fret. If you notice that the low E is sounding high at the 12th fret, then this means that you need to lengthen the string to reduce the pitch. This would be loosening the screw at the base of the bridge and pulling that string saddle backwards. Now, this process is the same for both Fender and Gibson style instruments, so no different there. And it might take a little bit of experimenting to try to get it right, but once you do and you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. You're going to want to repeat this process for each string, tuning it to make sure that it's in tune when it's open, and then tuning it once again at the 12th fret using your string saddles on the bridge. Now, like I said earlier, I will link a video both in the video here and down in the description of detail shots of this so that you can see someone do it if you need further examples and more resources on how to intonate your instrument. Now, the final aspect of an at-home setup that you should be able to do on your own is cleaning your guitar's electronics. Pots can sound scrouchy because of debris or dust getting inside of them, and it can affect your guitar's performance either from having them be sticky or just having a lot of unwanted sound as you adjust settings on your instrument. The way that you can clean this up is simply by just twisting the knobs until you hear that dust and crackle kind of start to go away. Now, if you need a little bit of extra help with this, you want to use a can of deoxit. Deoxit is a contact cleaner, and it removes oxidation and improves connections in your guitar's electronics. You can spray a little bit of this into the potentiometer, the pot, and twist away to get a smoother sound and to clean up any of that dust and crackle. You can also clean your guitar's input jack this way by spraying deoxit either into the jack itself or onto a cable tip and inserting that in and out of the jack to help clean that up and remove any dust or crackle there. The last simple thing we should be able to do with our electronics is just make sure all the connections are tight. These are often with little nuts that are all over the instrument, either on our pot knobs or on our input jack here, and you have no idea how often I have students come into lessons with me and we spend the entirety of the lesson fishing out the input jack from inside of the guitar. We just want to be able to use an adjustable wrench to make sure that that's always tight, and so that it feels like when we insert our cable, it feels like there is a tight connection and like the cable is not moving around on the inside of the instrument. You can often just do this with a simple adjustable wrench, but sometimes on recessed input jacks, like on Stratocasters, I'll need to use a needle nose pliers to grip on either side of the nut and give it final little twists to make sure that it sits in correctly. Now that kind of concludes all the things that I think you should be able to do on your own when you're working on your instrument. Let's now start to talk about things that we should ask our luthier to do. Things that I ask my luthier to do are anything that involves frets, right? Removing frets, recrowning frets, or shaving frets, or anything that involves removing material from the neck. This would be sanding down finishes or possibly rounding out fret edges. The other thing that I like to ask my luthier to do is pickup swaps. Anything that has sort of intense electronic work or soldering, I usually don't want to do that myself. That's not to say that you couldn't do those things yourself, but it's just something that I think I would be more comfortable having a professional do. So the first thing that I brought up there was anything involving frets. When you are playing the guitar, you are pressing a metal string onto a metal fret and rubbing them together. What this does over time is dents the frets, removes material, possibly crimps them in places, and this can result in your strings not ringing out correctly or feeling like your string might be getting stuck in the fret. A luthier needs to reshape the fret using special tools to remove material and give you a nice rounded edge again. In special cases, if it's particularly bad, you may have to remove frets entirely and re-fret the guitar. This involves removing wood from the neck and resanding and leveling the neck, and it can get quite involved quite quickly. So I almost always want a luthier to fix my frets. I never want to do that kind of thing at home. What does it look like when you've damaged frets? Well, luckily I took some photos from before my guitar's last setup, and I can show them to you. You can notice that there are just these little dents and crimps all over the place at different points on the neck, and I can show you that in a couple different places. The second thing I brought up that you should probably have your luthier do is any modification you make to your neck that involves removing material. Now, something that could happen is as you're playing the guitar, you might feel like the wooden edge of your fret is sticking into you or it's quite sharp. This is something that you fix by rounding fret edges and is something that a luthier can do with a screwdriver. Something else that could happen is if you're playing the guitar and your neck has shrunk slightly due to a lack of moisture in the air, you might have metal fret ends sticking out of the neck, and this is called fret poke. The way that you want to fix fret poke is by having your luthier address the frets and round off and polish those edges, and they have special files in order to do this. The third thing that you might notice when you're playing the guitar is feeling like your hand is sticking to the back of the neck or like there's old glue there. This might be as a result of having too much lacquer on your neck, and this can also be removed by a luthier who might use some steel wool to do this. But again, while you could do that at home, I still think a luthier should do it. They have the proper polishes and the proper tools. The third thing that I brought up that you should probably have your luthier do is any large electrical work on the inside of the guitar. Now, there are lots of people who do this on the internet, and it seems fairly simple, but it's something that I never learned how to do, and I feel like a majority of people aren't great at soldering, and so it's something that I leave up to my luthier whenever I want to have pickup swaps done. This is especially true when working on semi-hollow instruments. It's fairly simple to open up the inside of your Fender style instrument. It's often just removing this pick guard here, but on semi-hollow style instruments, it is nearly impossible to feed those parts in and out of the guitar without damaging it. I can link a video of Mick from that pedal show having the most frustrating time ever and then finally resigning himself to asking his local luthier to do a pickup swap for him because working on semi-hollow instruments is just such a pain. And finally, how do we ask our local luthier to do these things for us? Well, it's important to try to cultivate a relationship with your local luthier and figure out someone who's going to be a consistent person you could go to with these kinds of questions. I often don't recommend going through a big box guitar store to have work like this done on the instrument that you have, even if it's a service that they offer. It's not always going to be a consistent person, and you may not be able to communicate the things that you want directly to the person who is working on your guitar. It might just come as a work order through the front desk, and that's not a great situation for when it's your instrument and you want to be able to have some amount of control over what's being done to it. When you go to your luthier, you want to be specific about what you want done. Even though, as I described earlier, to me a total setup includes everything that we've just talked about, that may not be what a luthier hears when you mention it to them. If you say you just want a setup to your local luthier, then they are going to just do the setup that we talked about that you could probably do at home. They are going to be looking for string height adjustments to your action. They're going to be checking your truss rod. They're going to be checking the electronic connections, but they may just do those things and not really go beyond it. If you think you're having specific issues with frets, then you need to tell them that. You need to let them know that you want them to look at recrowning some frets and maybe fixing some of that stuff. If you think that you want your fretboard edges rounded, you need to tell them that specifically. They're not just going to know it. You need to let them know and advocate for yourself. That doesn't mean being aggressive, but it just means understanding all parts of the instrument that we talked about so that you can be specific about the things that you're looking for. Now, a final recommendation I'm going to leave you with is if you've never had a professional setup done, you should probably go and have one. I know we just talked about doing a lot of this stuff yourself, but if you've never had a professional setup done, it'll just sort of show you what the optimal function of your guitar really is. It's a bit like having your house professionally cleaned. Even though we all know we're supposed to scrub behind the toilet, having it done just once will sort of start to show you when things begin to decline. This is true of the instrument too. If you get a professional setup done and then as months go on, you start to notice buzzing or fret poke or issues with your action, you will sort of know what the best place to put it back to kind of is. My guitar has often never felt better than when it comes back from a luthier, and I still love to have setups done professionally from time to time, just because it helps me sort of see where my guitars really should be, even as I make small adjustments to them while trying to keep them all functional. And finally with that, that's everything I think you should know about setups and how to talk to your local luthier about what you need fixed on your instrument. Thank you guys so much for watching if you made it all the way to the end. And again, please like and subscribe. That kind of thing really, really helps me out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here again for more lessons, pedal reviews, and just general guitar content. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you back here again soon.